Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, new paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here 9 times a week, Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, as well as YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will take time to subscribe and click notifications so that when a new conversation is posted, you'll be notified and you'll be able to tune in, listen in, and learn, be entertained and inspired. A reminder that Choices, which is my book, 5 Steps for Life, it's available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle with Audible, soon to be released. We also ask that if you can support the work that we are doing financially, we do have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And when they ask for an email address to whom you're sending, please go to richard@richarddugan.com. That's the email address. If you go to richarddugan.com, there is also a link directly to PayPal so that you can send us whatever support you can. And we thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. We also ask that you take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. And with that, we now take you to our very special interview and guest here on Tell Me Your Story. And welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and thank you so much for being with us, along with our very special guest who's going to share some very interesting things with us. She's going to share with us conversations with Hathor as well as conversations with the earth. My guest is Yafi Yair, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Hi, Richard. Thank you for having me.
I'm going to start by asking about your name. I've always fascinated by people's names and what their origins are, and even the meanings thereof. Can you share with us the origins of your name? It's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, indeed, it has a meaning. So the origin is from Israel. I was born and raised in Israel. There, my name is not that unique. It's much more unique here, but it does have a meaning. Every word, every name in Hebrew has a meaning. And my first name is connected to the word beauty. I was named after my grandmother, Bella. And my last name, Yair, means will bring light, will light, which is quite cool when you think about it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. By the way, before we go too far, folks, I want to give you the website so that you can check out the work that she's doing and the books and so forth. YafiChanneling.com. That's YafiChannelling.com. Will be linked to that website as well. Now, I've read a number of different books, conversations with, and you put whatever you want behind that. Um, One of my favorite, I think it's a 4 or 5 5-page book series or part, if you will, having to do with conversations with the masters of the Far East, something along those lines. And that was a fascinating. I think it is a 5-volume, and they're small books. It's not huge tomes and what have you. Conversations. Who is, first of all, I guess we should start there. Who is Hathor?
Yes, so it's actually not as simple question as you would think. So we know the name Hathor from ancient Egypt. So the name Hathor refers to an Egyptian goddess in the ancient days, and she was often depicted with a cow's horns or a cow next to her, so in association with a cow. When I went to Egypt a couple of years ago for the first time, I learned that she is also known as the mother of all the gods. And she's depicted as a cow because she is said to nurse all the other gods and give up her milk, which makes her the mother of all and archetypal mother, which is actually more closely accurate to her true identity, which is really the divine feminine. So there are different ways we can understand the name Hathor. So When I started channeling, my group, my teammates asked, well, what about the name Hathor? Is that what we should call you when if we want to connect to you?
Hmm.
And she slash them said, really, we were given different names by different cultures in different times. So even the name Venus and Aphrodite, those goddesses, they're really related to the same essence, but different cultures gave them different names. So
Hmm.
the idea is that it's a very advanced to our understanding being or entity that's related to the divine feminine, and different cultures depicted her as a mother or a goddess in different ways. But there's also the ET connection here. And one of the reasons that they usually speak in plural, it's because it's also a collective from the Sirius star system. So there are different ways of understanding the essence and the identity of what Hathor is, but the short answer that it's a name that was given during ancient Egypt. But there must be something about the name that does resonate deeply, because when the first time they came to me, they chose the name Hathor. They could have, and which a name, by the way, that I never heard before I started channeling them.
Mm.
So they could have come as Venus or Aphrodite, but they didn't. They chose the name Hathor, and in my opinion, and it really is just an opinion, of course, we could ask them, is that idea of the archetypal mother, of the greater, more broad identity that's associated with the divine feminine.
Hmm. Well, I know that on these programs over the last almost a couple of decades that we've been doing this program, we've brought up the subject of the feminine and masculine aspects, and of course, in this case, the divine. And a lot of people early on had a very serious misunderstanding about the feminine and the feminine energy and how, women, they wanted to take over. They wanted to run the show. And the reality has been, as far as I am understanding, that that is not the case. That the feminine energy is looking for balance, not
Exactly.
usurpation, as it
Yes.
were.
Absolutely. And the feminine energy is not the same as a woman.
Hmm.
The reason we say divine feminine, in my opinion, is to differentiate from what we think of or what we mean when we say feminine, a woman, versus the divine feminine. So when we talk about the divine feminine, we talk about aspects of femininity that are feminine by nature. So an
Hmm.
example would be creativity. Another example would be singing and dancing. Now, we all know that there are many men that are very creative. There are many men that are dancers and singers. So
Hmm.
it's not only for women, but by its very essence, it has feminine qualities. And as you may have noticed, our world has been run by men, and not only men, by very masculine energies, masculine authorities, very war driven, control driven, power driven, which are all very masculine attributes, but especially masculinity when it's out of balance. And what is happening now? Humanity is being called to step up into a greater state of balance, of harmony, so we can evolve as a species. And that brings the divine feminine here into the picture to attempt to bring balance into the imbalance that we as humans have been in for
Hmm.
very, very long time now.
A lot of people also do feel, as you have written about, of course, your conversations with Hathor, conversations with the earth, and many, many people, I would probably count myself among them, who do believe that the earth, Terra, if you will, is a living, breathing entity, if you will. It reminds me of the Dr. Seuss story of Horton Hears a Who, and that he hears this civilization on a dust speck. And in a manner of speaking, that's what we live on, is this dust speck that's floating around in the universe. And that the planet itself has a life and it has an energy. In other conversations I've had, it has its own sound. If you can find a quiet place on the planet, you can hear the hum. You can hear that vibration, that frequency. I know that that is very simplistic in the concepts of having conversations with the earth. Talk to us a little bit more about what kinds of conversations, maybe some of the key points that she has, if I am correct that it is a she, has imparted through you.
Yes, so in my first book, Conversations with the Earth, I don't speak just to Terra, Gaia, however you want to call her,
Mhm.
but I do speak with different aspects and elements of the Earth. So, for example, the first chapter opens with fire consciousness. Then I go on to water consciousness, then wind. I have a long chapter where I channel tree consciousness, trees. So, and then it goes more and more galactic. The moon, Andromeda, different councils, the zetas and hybridization program. It gets more and more wild. But
Mhm.
what holds all of this together is that even these different sources talk to us about the Earth, about humanity at this time, and the changes that are happening. Now, you
Mm.
asked what kind of wisdom can the Earth offer us? And it's really endless how wise and how much we can integrate with that wisdom. So, one way to understand it is nature and how much wisdom is within nature. And even spiritual teachers of all ages were aware of that and were aware that time alone in nature is where you get a lot of the secrets of the divines and wisdom and teachings of the divine. Now, in terms of specific lessons, or yeah, we can call them lessons. So one that the fire consciousness had to offer, which I really appreciate, and there's a lot more, but it's just one that stood out to me, is about the cycle of destruction and creation, and how both destruction and creation are two sides of the same coin. And as humans, we have a tendency to reject destruction, to see it as a bad thing, to try to avoid it, and not to understand how, when you look at the bigger picture, creation cannot happen without destruction. Destruction cannot happen without creation. And it's a way, in a way, they are on the same spectrum, different side of a continuum.
Mm.
So that is one point of wisdom that the fire consciousness had to teach us.
Mm.
Um, an example from the wind talked about taking, and I actually feel like it kind of build on top of each other. So let's go to the water, which came after the fire. And the water was a lot about being able to go with the flow. And in general, the Hathor frequency and divine feminine frequency apparently has a deep connection to the water. So the water has this feminine aspect of being able to go with the flow and not try to control things, which is a deep, deep lesson of trust to humans and individuals at this point, of learning to trust, of learning to really accept whatever comes without trying to fight it.
Mm.
And that's where the wind comes into the picture and builds on top of that. And the wind, a lot of people in my group, so all these questions were asked by people that I meet with in my group. So I'm channeling and they're the one asking the questions. And
Yeah.
a lot of the questions were about difficulties that they're going through. All these guides, Gaia herself comes through about these exciting times and all these amazing changes, and a lot of people are having really hard time in their lives. So a lot of the questions were about the different challenges they're having and the difficulties. And where when the wind came through, the wind had to share that, yes, it's like chaos. It's like a tornado. Things are happening and changing and rocking and happening. And the best thing to do is to choose the path of least resistance and to kind of allow this swirl of energy like a tornado to take you all the way to the top. And if you're able to ride that wave, if you're able to take the path of least resistance, it will always lead you to the top, like the top of the tornado. And the wind says that from there, the view is beautiful.
Mm.
So if we're able to take on these challenges that we're facing right now and handle them in the most graceful, the most go with the flow, trusting way, the more we're going to be able quickly and smoothly to enjoy the beautiful fruits that we're growing with this chaos.
Mm. Well, the wind is the whisper of our mother, the earth. The wind is the hand of our father, the sky. The wind watches over our struggles and pleasures. The wind is the goddess who first learned to fly. Lyrics from John
Hmm.
Denver's song, The Wind.
Ah, how
And
interesting.
indeed, and I when that comes up, I kind of turn it up a little bit. It goes on to say that the wind is the bearer of bad and good tidings. Weaver
Mm.
of darkness, bringer of dawn, the wind gives the rain, yes, and builds us a rainbow. The wind is the singer who sang the first song. I love that one. The wind is a twister of anger and warning. The wind brings the fragrance of freshly mown hay. The wind is the racer and the white stallion running and the sweet taste of love on a slow summer's day. The wind knows the songs of the cities and canyons, thunder of mountains and roar of the sea. The wind is the taker and giver of mornings. The wind is the symbol of all that is free. So welcome the wind and the wisdom she offers. Follow her summons when she calls again. In your heart and your spirit, let the breezes surround you. Lift up your voice and then lift up your voice then and sing with the wind as we continue talking with Dr. Yafi Yair. She's a clinical psychologist, multidimensional channel, and author, and we're going to talk more with her as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, Reverend Dr. D, here on the program that brings you new paradigms for a new world, giving you choices and knowledge of those choices. One of the things that I have often said, Dr. Yafi, is, pardon me, nature, as we speak of Mother Earth, nature is our greatest teacher. If we would only listen, if we would only just sit down and start to absorb, as you put it, that wisdom, that knowledge, and so
Absolutely.
forth. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's a majority, but nonetheless, a lot of people are not listening. They don't want to listen. They don't care because their focus is more on, this is almost an ironic statement, the material world, but not the material world of Mother Nature,
Not the natural
not
world.
the natural world. Thank you. Thank you for that. Talk to us a little bit about the, and going back to the conversations with Hathor and the changing of the consciousness, not only just of specifically the planet, but of the people of this planet. What
Hmm.
I'm finding is that there are more people who are, so to speak, attuning more, not only to the natural world, but to the divine world, than those who are screaming and yelling through all of the different media sources and outlets. That's a minority. And that's something that we have to recognize, that they may sound like the majority, but they're not. That you
That's right.
are part of the majority on the planet. Is that a fair assessment? You get that message from Hathor?
Yes, definitely. You cannot relate too much on the news and what you see around you because, exactly like you said, that's not the majority. It's what bleeds and therefore leads.
Mm.
And that is why it's out there on the news. But if you even think in your own life, and that's what Hathor, by the way, constantly encourages us to do, even when we hear messages from other guides, whether they're channeled material or otherwise, there are all these like big statements. There are big dates. Oh, there was a big shift in 2012. Well, Hathor says, okay, what does that mean? Pause and look at your own life. Reflect in your own life story. Did you have any big shifts and turns in 2012? Are you having big shifts and turns right now or in 2020, which was another big year for turning events? And the answer is yes, absolutely. I can look in my own life and see how I pivoted in those years.
Mhm.
And it does apply personally. So whenever you hear those big general statements, try to see if it's relevant to you, if it relates to your life. And
Mm.
I can tell you that in 2020, in my life, I had a re-emergence of appreciation of nature. I've always liked nature. Even when I was a little girl, I used to write books when I was very little, fiction. And one of the books that I wrote was Nature Girl, a girl that can communicate to the plants and trees and animals. And then,
Hmm.
of course, I put away childish things and went on with my life. And look at me now, I'm speaking to animals and plants and trees. And in 2020, when the COVID shutdown happens, and I'm sharing it because I'm not the only one, many people experienced this in their life. There were lesser human activities and reemergence of nature, and more people discovered parks, and I'm including myself. I rediscovered local parks that my husband and I could go for walks. I discovered birds. Until then, I took birds for granted. All of a sudden, I discovered birds and how interesting the different calls and different types of birds and their behavior and their interaction with plants. How certain plants and certain trees bring more wildlife, including birds. And I really had this reconnection and reappreciation and re-falling in love with nature itself and our beautiful planet and beautiful natural world, whether it's appreciating the colors during sunrise or sunset, or enjoying again the birds and other animals around you. But I find that it's not only me, that many people are having this reawakening, reappreciation, and that is a part of the bigger changes that are happening to humanity.
Mm. I can't help because when you say something, it spurs a thought in my mind. And as I've often said, the universe asks the questions and sometimes gives thought. I'm just along for the ride. So I want to share with you another lyric. And this probably goes back 40 years or maybe 50. Because he called the forest brother, because he called the earth his mother, they drove him out into the rain. Some people even said the boy from the country was insane because he spoke with the fish in the creek. He tried to tell us that the animals could speak. Who knows? Perhaps they do. How do you know they don't? Just because they've never spoken to you. Another one of John Denver's songs, which he's one of my favorites, Boy from the Country is the title. And what I find so interesting is when my wife and I moved from Phoenix, Arizona, my hometown, to Santa Barbara, California, we moved into a cottage up on the mountain above Santa Barbara. And it's
Mm,
actually technically in the National Forest of Los Padres. And we have oak trees and giant pine trees. We even named this one pine tree because we were giving it the gray water from the washing machine. And we
mm,
were using eco friendly detergents and so forth. So we weren't harming it. And it's gone crazy in the 19 years we've been here. And my wife, she's the one that named it. And we have buried a number of our animals below it for
mm,
two reasons. One, because we want, originally my wife said it was a male, calling it Ben, so that Ben could look after them, but also so that Ben could then be served by the nutrients from their material bodies, that kind of thing.
mhm,
We even ask the oak trees if we need to trim a limb for whatever reason. Is this okay to do? And of course, my wife is a little bit more in touch in that regard, which again is fine and just guides me. And then, of course, we carry that out. Um, we've been fortunate in that regard to live in this kind of space. Not everybody does.
mhm,
But one of the things I remember, because you mentioned the COVID shutdown, one of the
mhm,
things that was said was that you were to not go to work. You were to stay home. But the thing was, they didn't say you had to stay inside.
mhm,
That was the thing that I don't think was ever mentioned. I was fortunate I could continue to go to work because I was the only one there, at the radio station.
mhm,
I'm wondering if those are some of the things that we misinterpret because we take things so literally. Stay home. Oh, that must
Hmm.
mean stay in the house. Well,
Well, if
that kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
hmm yeah, we misinterpret things all the time, but also I think authorities don't always have the right ideas in their minds as well. They have their own priorities. So the idea is, yes, more and more people could work from home. And I think that's a part also of the changes our society is going through. So there's
Mhm.
that part of it. But also, yes, the more time you spend outside, and even the sun was proven to help with immunity and
All the different things.
different
Yeah.
aspects.
Hmm.
Yes. So, but Hathor, because people asked, what if I don't live in an area where I have all this nature? What if I live in an apartment building?
Hmm.
And Hathor asked them, well, you have a balcony, right? That's the outside. And
Yeah.
people were also asked that about different moon eclipses and different events when they want to take in that energy. So again, the answer was you don't have to be out in the forest. You don't have to be out where you can see perfect sky. You can stand in your balcony. It's too cold. Stand by your window, gaze outside. So there are
Hmm.
different levels
Right.
of being close to nature, but they're all valid. The
Mm.
idea is to really connect to the outside world, the natural world, and begin tuning yourself into it, begin enjoying it, begin becoming more familiar with it. And for different people, it means different things, but it doesn't matter as long as you take some steps to make it happen for yourself.
Absolutely. I want to talk to you a little more about 2020 as we continue. We're talking with Dr. Yafi Yair, and the book's entitled Communication with Hathor, as well as Communication.
Conversations with
I beg your
Hathor.
pardon, Conversations. Communication, conversation, but the title is Conversations with Hathor and Conversation with the Earth as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I wanted to jump into another area, but related to what you were referring to in terms of 2020, and a lot happened in 2020, obviously. But in September 2019, I began a campaign, and it had to do with 2020. And I began to encourage people to take time during, at that time, the year of perfect vision, 2020. And then
Mm.
in 21, it was the decade of perfect vision, as we speak of, to spend some time going within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place, by the way, that no one else but you can get to, and listen to that still small voice. And people will call it by a lot of different names, but I am curious from your perspective, especially as a channeler, as well, in terms of communicating with other entities, beings, extraterrestrials, etc. How important is it for us, whether we get outside or not, that, hopefully we can, to really stop, turn off everything, so to speak, and go within to that place where we
Yeah.
can get all kinds of great things?
Yeah, I don't think I could emphasize enough how much important it is to be able to go inward and to be able to find quiet time just with yourself. Like you said, it's been called many names, and we can call it meditation. And even the word meditation can mean many, many things,
Hmm.
but we'll just take it with its basic essence of being quiet within yourself. And I don't think there is any tool anywhere at all that is more instrumental, profound, and important to know yourself, know thyself,
Mm.
to develop your intuition, to enhance any inner connection or connection to spirit. That is the number one behavioral tool. It's not only behavioral, but it's the number one tool that you can do in order to take that first step. And it doesn't even, you don't need to want to be a psychic, right? You hopefully want to know yourself regardless of what your profession is. And that is really the basic, the 101 of any exploration is to have that quiet time. And for me, meditating every day, and for me, it's about an hour a day. That's kind of my Goldilocks zone, and also going to the Monroe Institute regularly and explore different states of consciousness and to start navigating the different levels, different layers, and becoming more familiar with the different layers. For me, that has been instrumental in my spiritual journey, my personal growth, and then, of course, in becoming more psychic and eventually becoming a channeler.
Mhm. I want to ask you a little bit about your upbringing. Now, I am not going to assume that just because you were born in Israel that you're Jewish, but I have found, I'm curious as to how you were brought up, what philosophical foundation you grew up with.
Mhm. So I grew up in a very, very secular home. We still considers ourselves Jewish, but it was more of a cultural um,
Mhm.
given than any religious background. Both my parents had really no belief in almost anything other than the intellect, especially my mom. She was brilliant, very intellectual, and kind of dismissive of anything energetic, spiritual, paranormal. She was generally a very open-minded person in general, so there was a tiny bit of openness, but even that with more disbelief than anything else. And even when I started exhibiting abilities that she could not explain, it was interesting. She never called me a liar in that way. So she accepted that I believed it, but it was too scary and incomprehensible for her to really go into. So she would jokingly call me witchy. And whenever things happened that I could tell her that she had no other explanation, she would just laugh and say, "Oh, you're such a witchy." And that would be the end of it. She couldn't take the extra step, or she couldn't really go into it and truly explore because it was just too much for her paradigm. She couldn't really cope with it. And my dad just admittedly thought it was scary and wanted nothing to do with that.
Well, I know that I myself, I was born and raised Catholic, but the most impactful period of my life was in my 20s and early 30s when I worked for a Christian radio station. And I struggled, like you would not believe, with the answers that I was given to the questions I was asking. They didn't make any sense. They didn't
Mhm.
fit. And then as at the age of 33, I became a, well, I didn't become one, but I began to associate with members of the Baha'i faith. One of the places I think would be very cool to go to is their International House of Justice there in Haifa, Israel. But I have been studying all of these different philosophies. And one of the things that struck me at the radio station was the dismissiveness with which they would discount, let's just say, your experiences. Oh, I'm sorry, but that's not between the covers of this book. So
Mhm.
it didn't happen. The only problem is it's already changed you. That experience has made you who you are now, and you can't go back. Now, you can start to hide it because you feel, you've been shamed, and okay, there you go. Or you can say, I don't care what you say. I'm going to move forward and do what I'm doing. Did
Mhm.
you experience any of that kind of pushback from outside the family unit, from friends, peers, what have you, in that regard, or was that something you kept on the down low, as they say, you kept it under wraps a little bit until you got to a place where you had the confidence to say, "This is who I am. This is what I do."
Yeah, I definitely not only I kept it under wraps, I kind of adopted, I would say, their perspective. So there was a part of me that was open. For example, at 8 years old, I had a daylight sighting, and that kind of reaffirmed that my magical thinking is real, that there is a basis in physical reality to what I'm experiencing. But despite that, I did kind of bow down to my parents and to the secular society I was in and kind of pushed it away from my mind and from my life for many, many years. And I was kind of back and forth with it, like dabbling occasionally, but mostly harnessing and uh, focusing on my left brain, scientific thinking, And that was the case until much more recently in life. Well, it's all relative, about 13 years ago, late 2011, early 2012, where I had the latest reawakening in anything, in interest of anything spiritual and paranormal.
Mm.
And I definitely experienced a lot of pushback. At that point, I was finishing my doctorate in clinical psychology, and I discovered hypnosis, which I found fascinating. And I also discovered how not open-minded the general clinical field was. There was really no option to be a clinical psychologist uh, licensed by the American Psychological Association and also practice spiritual sessions,
Hmm.
whether they're energy session, which now at least there's energy psychology, or definitely doing readings or anything like that, because that, and even with hypnosis. When I was first trained, my first training was clinical hypnosis. We were guided that the American Psychological Association suggests that if people come to you and ask if you could offer past life regression in your sessions, you should tell them there is no such thing. Which immediately just didn't sit well with me. Even with the teachers, honestly, of the course, it didn't sit well, but it definitely didn't sit well with me, who was much more interested in past life regression than in hypnosis for pain, for chronic pain, and all these other things that we were taught. Which I'm not saying they don't have a place, but as a person, I found anything subconscious, anything hidden, anything unusual, so much more fascinating. And my curiosity was really a driving force here.
Mm.
And I experienced a lot of rejection, and it was tough, even making the decision of to choose a spiritual path after spending 11 years being educated in clinical psychology. That was not an easy choice to make. And but once I did, and once I realized that the rejection that I'm getting from my peers, from my supervisors, that's really on them.
Mm.
And like I said, it was all parallel. A lot of things happened: hypnosis, meditation, Monroe Institute, a lot of things entered my life together. And I was at the Monroe Institute doing the Gateway Voyage program. So that's the first program I've ever done. It's a prerequisite for a lot of programs, so it made sense. And the main message I received from my higher self, from my guides during that program is follow your heart.
Mm.
And they said, this is the number one message. It's important to me. And I think at the time, I didn't even realize how much that one message was going to guide my whole life from that point on, including that big, big decision of if I had to choose between the clinical and spiritual world, I'm choosing the spiritual world because that's what my heart really wants to do. That's where my passion lays. That's where my interest, that's where my curiosity lays. And that's a part of what it means to follow your heart.
Mm.
Follow your heart doesn't have to be a very esoteric practice or a very feminine practice. It's really following what you're truly passionate about and interested in, because that reveals what your heart truly wants.
Yeah. We are talking with the author of Conversations with Hathor and Conversations with the Earth. Website is yafichanneling.com. And I am wondering if, as we continue here, we might be able to have an experience in that regard. But I want to ask you, of course, also about some of the other things that you have in your practice, in your arsenal, so to speak, the modalities that you use. Is that something that we can do?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well,
So
I'll tell you what, we'll do that. But first, I want to remind our listeners that she is Dr. Yafi. I am Reverend Dr. D, and this is Tell Me Your Story. We are now going to open it up here to allow Yafi to share with us from her perspectives. But again, Yafi, I also want to talk later on here with what time we have left about the channeling, about the light language. So we'll
mm,
talk about that in just a little bit. But please, I give you the floor at this particular point.
Okay, so a little bit about what I do. So I still practice hypnosis. It's still a part of my passion. And whether it's clinical, practical hypnosis or past life regression, QHHT, and all the other wonderful things and ways to explore the subconscious, I'm still passionate about it and I still practice it. But a big part of my practice is spiritual, where I do either psychic readings, light flow sessions, or channeling. And I both teach light language and channeling and practice it. And light language was really the latest addition to my spiritual vocabulary. It took me some time to be sold on it because it was a little too woo-woo for my taste, and it's not easily verifiable. You know, when I started doing psychic readings, one of the things that you get validations really, really, really fast. You say something that doesn't make sense to you, and all of a sudden the other person knows exactly what you're talking about, and it means everything to them. So validation came very quickly in terms of psychic readings. And even the channeling, validation came relatively quickly. But with light language, it's really out there and it's really abstract. However, I did discover that people could feel the energy much more strongly with a light language, which I found so interesting. Even people that said, "Oh, I can't feel energy. I don't even know what it means to feel energy." Usually with a light language, they feel it. And now Hathor, the Hathors, they don't really call it light language. They acquiesce and use whatever name humans are used to using, but they really refer to it as field tuning. They say they work with our energy field through the sound, and they first harmonize it so we are balanced, and then they amplify it. And once it's amplified, we start overlapping more and resonating in coherence with our other group members, depending who we're working with. And then as a result, our field amplifies even more. So now we become very, very powerful and also more balanced, more in tune with our own inner harmony and with each other. So that is what field tuning is. And with the light language, the more spoken words that are not English, for me, when I do it, I feel a lot of it is Isis, also an Egyptian goddess. And I used to see it in my mind's eye when I channel, I close my eyes. And I used to see the light language as white light that interacts mainly with people's spines. So it goes around the spines and does all kind of things and works a lot with the heart and the tones and sounds that Hathor makes. And there's an overlap. It's not as clear cut and separate as I present it. But when Hathor makes a different sounds, what she calls field tuning, I see it as more of a golden energy, and that works more general with our field. As I said, there's overlap. It works a lot with the heart and with the mind, but it's more of a general, wider effect, while the specific words have more interaction with our spines and specific energy centers.
Can you share with us the light language, what that sounds like?
Absolutely. Yes. All right. So I'm going to invite them and we'll see what comes up. Tinaria saharo homane karyanita yeham. Ukronayeta rohomanarienayetaham. Huronayeta huoranieta ke krianotorustiana maha krianataraye kuromahenaria herania umareyena hai ke kriana hayena Homareyania tareyania. Contariaticareania hamaroye. Kirenaye taromaya. Orumane ierayena. Om
Now, you spoke earlier of the vibrations that people feel, how it affects them as opposed to, say, a channeling and so forth. I'm going to ask this question regardless because there probably isn't the answer to this question, but is there a translation at all that you are aware of to what you just shared in the light language?
So the translation is not word for word.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes there is a meaning that's more verbal, that's more easily translatable. And sometimes it's really about the experience and about the energy rather than specific meaning, specific words. Now, they shared with me very early on, I was again a little more left brain, even about the practice of light language, trying to figure out what things meant. And one of the things they shared with me that the word Om, which is not always pronounced Om like we're used to it, often they say it more like whom, but the word Om means love. It actually has a meaning and it means love.
Mm.
And that's what it means in light language. So when people talk about Om as creation or Om being the most common mantra, it's really people meditating on love,
Mm.
even if they don't know it. So sometimes there's very specific meanings. Other times, like I said, it's manipulation of energy.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I don't know if you were able to detect it or not, but at some point, I could feel them going down the energy centers, and they did some work here and then some work here, and eventually it got lower and lower, and they worked more with the lower dantian or their root chakra.
Mm-hmm.
So if you talk about that, you can talk in English about movement of direction and movement of energy, but it doesn't really translate to meanings in terms of words.
Mm-hmm.
And other times there are specific meanings, especially often lessons about the heart and heart energy and how to live from that place and how to learn how to feel different
Mm-hmm.
energies.
It makes me think of a couple of things. Number one is the Kundalini energy, as is taught in most specifically for me anyway, through Autobiography of a Yogi, where I learned about that and self-realization and so forth. But also the chakras, and a book that my mother gave me many years ago called Joy's Way. And I thought, oh, seven chakras. Okay, I got the colors, the rainbow, and what they're with this, the root chakra, the heart, the throat, and so forth. Joy's Way opened it up and said, 700 maybe. All right, there are 700 chakras in the body at the joints in all of the different places, not just the seven, which I thought, wow. And then, of course, makes me think of Chinese medicine and how
Mhm.
they work with the meridians and acupuncture and acupressure and so forth. And I think of all of these different aspects of what I have come to understand healing to be. And it isn't healing in the conventional AMA context. It's healing could be, you could use a different word called balancing or
Mhm.
harmonizing, if you will.
Mhm.
Because I struggled with that when my wife and I, who are both Reiki masters, sent an absentee healing to my father's brother. And at my uncle's funeral, my mother told me the story of what happened when we had sent him that healing. And then when my wife's nephew passed away, just about a year or so ago, it dawned on me that there is no you don't lose the battle with whatever the condition is, the disease.
That's
If it
right.
goes into remission, you've won for a while in the physical body. But if the body shuts down and you leave it, you've won. You're free. Like my father, he that's what
So
he
we
went
win
through.
either way.
You win. It's a win-win. So, and I've been trying to share that with people that, it isn't they didn't lose their battle with cancer or with whatever it is.
I couldn't agree more. We have this view of death as the bad guy in our civilization, and it's really misunderstanding. And again, over identification with our physical, egoic self, and kind of missing out on the understanding that our true reality, our bigger reality, a more permanent reality is our spiritual, energetic consciousness reality. And that's where we go, where we shed this body. We don't disappear, we don't die, We
Yeah.
just say goodbye to this physical body because for whatever reason, we can no longer grow while wearing this meat suit. So we
Right.
say goodbye to it and we shed it and we leave it behind.
Yeah. It's one of the challenges that I have with people who are afraid to die. Because, for one thing, they're concerned that there's nothing after this. And to which I
Mhm.
respond, I said, "Look, if there is nothing after this, you're not going to know it anyway. So it
Exactly. There's nothing
doesn't
to
matter."
worry about.
Right. However, my logical brain, that I guess left side, processes the information and says that if there is nothing after this, it doesn't make any sense logically with everything that we go through and experience here in the material world, that we would go through all of that asking these questions of, who am I, why am I here, where am I going, what's my life's purpose, etc. Why would whatever brought us into being put us through that just to end it, blow out the candle. Just that
Mhm.
that part. But by the same token, I also say, look, I don't know, but I will tell you what I believe. Okay. And I love Greg Braden in his book, The Healing Power of Belief. In our conversation, he says, right now we believe, whatever it is that you believe. But one day we will no longer believe. We will know.
I'm actually reading this book right now.
Oh, you are?
Yes.
I'm trying to get him back on my program too, and have him back. It's been a long time, and I was interviewing him back in the 1990s, having
Probably was
conversation.
easier to get a hold of him back then.
Yeah, because he was not as known today, not as known as he is today. But
Hmm.
I'll take those half-hour stints if they'll give me a couple of them. I'll take a half hour here and I'll put it together with a half hour there. Needless to say, one other quick question I have for you in regards to the work that you do. Obviously, this channeling, and my wife and I used to attend a channeling in Phoenix where we would go over, we would pay a small, I mean, $10, $15 to support them, which was fine. And it was with an entity, a collective, if you will, called Equinox. And Equinox would give a message. And most of the time, my wife and I would not ask, so could you tell me about our finances or this or that? What message do you have for us or me today? Was usually the question. So we would let
Hmm.
Equinox share that. So I'm wondering if I don't know what or whom would be channeled through you. But I'm wondering if we might, um, I'll use the word impose upon you to share a little bit in that regard, if I may.
So, yes, of course. I'll just mention what you said before about healing.
Hmm.
Coincidentally, I just maybe yesterday posted a clip from my channeling called Healing versus Attunement because I channeled another
Ah.
wild story, Viola the Fairy, and she was asked about healing. And she said that healing is really a misunderstanding what it means. And one of the reasons is kind of you touched on that healing means that we were broken, which was one permanent state, and now we're healed, which is another permanent state. And really, this is a misunderstanding. Really,
Mm.
what healing is, a better term would they used attunement, but you used other terms which are just as accurate, whether it's harmony or balance. And the idea is the attunement to your own balance, to your inner self. And that is what healing is. And that does not mean, like you said, for example, that you're going to cure cancer. It may mean it for some people, but for other people, it may mean to leave this body with assurance, with grace, without suffering. So whatever balance and harmony and inner attunement feels for is for the person for that specific situation. So
Mm.
I think you were right on. And again, what a coincidence that I just posted about this exact topic.
Yeah, don't you just
Now,
love the synchronicity of the universe?
it's all the time. It's a
Yeah.
part of our validation, how magical everything is and how interactive everything is all the time.
I know that for my wife and I, we're going through a move because we're moving to a house that we're trying to buy, and it's been stressful, and yet I've been constantly trying to remember the techniques that I used to get through the house buying process with my first wife back in 1993. And the one phrase we kept repeating over and over again, and it just came to me. I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. It doesn't matter what's going on. Here's what you tell yourself when you start feeling stressed. What are we doing? We're buying a house. We're buying a house. We're buying a house. It's in my book, Choices, 5 Steps for Life. There's a chapter in there about matching your words to your choice. Okay, what are we doing? Buying a house. So in this case, here we are. You and I are chatting, and we're doing an interview, having a conversation is better. I like that better. And so when you shift, you can make that energetic shift, then the universe is able to synchronize things. And I do believe that that's what's happening even with this house. It seems like it's taking a while, but it hasn't even been a month yet. And yet
Mm-hmm.
we're hopefully in the middle of September as we are conversing here. We will be traveling that 2.5 hours to the new home and setting up residency, doing a little a little saging and so on and so forth to cleanse it and make it our own, and really looking forward to that aspect. Getting back to the channeling, what I'd like for you to do, go ahead if you'd like to. What you need to do is I share with our listeners that you are listening to Dr. Yafi Yair, and the books are Conversation with Hathor and Conversation with the Earth. And the website that we want to send you to, we again will be linked, is yafichanneling.com as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. So, as we enter this particular portion of our program, we are going to open it up to and find out who it is that Dr. Yafi will be sharing with us. And maybe we'll have an opportunity before we wrap things up to ask a question or two.
Blessings to you. This is us, Hathor, as requested. We will say there are other entities, energies here in the background that may participate in the conversation if you or them choose it to be appropriate.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Blessings to you, and thank you for joining us here on this program. This is only the second time that we have actually had a channeling here on the program, and that goes back to 2007 as our chronometers work. Wanted to ask about the progress that that humanity is making. It has been said to me that outside forces, specifically as they are referred to, extraterrestrials, will not allow humanity to have a sixth extinction event. Now, whatever that means, will we as humanity raise the consciousness sufficiently to move past that potentiality that we've done 5 times prior?
Yes, this is a very good question. We'll make a small correction that from our perspective, this is the fourth time. So there have been 3 cycles of Earth and humanity going through a similar, you may say, point in the spiral of evolution. And
Hmm.
this is the fourth one. And from our perspective, humanity is making it, is and has gone through the needle, the hole of the needle, and it is already happening. So maybe in the past, us and others spoke about it in terms of future event, what is coming. But from our perspective, it is already here and now and happening. Now, in order to address your question, indeed, the Earth and humanity are protected by many forces. Some of them you may consider as extraterrestrial. In fact, many people, when talking to us or about us, consider us as extraterrestrials as well, because we are beings that you may associate with another star system, the Sirius star system in our case. So Many may refer to us as extraterrestrials aiding humanity through this shift at this time. But indeed, there are many protective forces and many who are here to experience and witness the shift that is taking place. Indeed, you see much chaos around you. You see war on your planet. And this is a part of everything that needs to rise to the surface to become apparent. Any system that is corrupt or broken must rise to the surface. It can no longer stay hidden, and humanity must be aware of the theater, the charade that is taking place with many, many, even most figures of authority on your planet. What is really happening under the surface to the people at large is an awakening of the mind, awakening of the heart, expansion of consciousness, connection within and both to others around you like you have never known before. And that is the awakening that is here now. This is the shift as it is unfolding and as the frequency of the entire planet, including its inhabitant, is rising.
Well, that is, I want to say good news. It is just news, and that's encouraging that our efforts, those of us who are wanting to do it consciously, by the same token, I also make the statement too that we're not, no one is forcing anybody to do anything beyond. They're here doing what they're doing. That's what they've chosen to do, and yet we just put it out there. We just say, hey, if you'd like to live, a better life and so forth, and everybody's definition is different. We have guests on this program and resources where you can choose what resonates with you and so forth. So, thank you so much for that. I'll just ask one final question in regards to the and I'm going to make it a little more personal to the process that my family, my wife and I are going through at this time. I'm excited. I have anticipation without expectation. Can you share, give some insight as to this process to maybe help to alleviate some of the fears that might be rolling around in her or my head?
Yes, we will say this process is a little longer than you have anticipated, and there is a reason for that. Not only timing has its own importance, its own weight, there is also processes that are happening under the surface beyond what you can see and detect with your human senses. So in this move that you are making, in this shift, there is a movement of energy from one place to another, from one state to another. We're not talking about states as the United States, but as in states of being. So there are a lot of transitions that are taking place in parallel as you are preparing to make this shift. Some of these are in your own life as you know and see it today. And some of the changes are energetic in nature and include other family members that are alive, other family members that are on the other side of the veil, and ancestors of, we would call them Native American in ancestry, that are also healing different wounds and different events in relation to the land that you are moving through.
Mm. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that and for sharing this time with us. And I guess my only other response to you again would be namaste.
Namaste to you as well. It is always our pleasure to engage in conversation and in this energy exchange. We thank you for holding the space for it. And with this, we bid you farewell for now.
And that was Hathor, and through channeled through Dr. Yafi Yair. And again, YafiChanneling.com is the website. The book's conversations with Hathor, as well as conversations with the earth. And I want to thank you, Doctor, for joining us here on the program and being a part of the work that we are about and have been for, my goodness, for 18 years doing this program, even longer than that, because I've been interviewing since the 1980. And this has just been a real blessing. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
I have three final questions I ask all of my guests that I will ask you. The first, and I'll ask those in a moment. But first, I want to thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story New Paradigms for a New World. We are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m. Streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. We're also on YouTube where you can watch these conversations. Please click on subscribe as well as notification. We hope you'll also go to Amazon to get a copy of my book, Choices 5 Steps for Life. It's in Audible and it'll be available soon, but it's also available through Amazon in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle. And if you can leave us a tip, we would appreciate it. Our tip jar is called PayPal. And on the homepage of richarddugan.com, there are links to both Amazon and to that PayPal account. We hope that you can tip us in some fashion. We'll take energetic support as well. And finally, we hope that you will take that time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within and listen to that still small voice. And with all of that being said, we now go to our final three questions. And the first of which is, who is Yafi Yair?
Yafi is the current identity body that I am inhabiting. She is a consciousness explorer. She is a bridge to other realms. And she is a drop in this beautiful ocean that we call humanity at this time.
What gets you up in the morning?
Mm. Well, usually my doggy that wants to cuddle and give me some kisses and then for me to take him out. But more figuratively, the mystery of life,
Mm,
the exciting events that I know that are coming, like things that I actually know about, whether it's travel or retreats or whatever, but also the mystery, the unknown, and not really knowing what's going to happen next. Um, and I think that's a part of the fun of it all.
mm. And finally, what was your best day?
Ooh, my best day. You know what? I'm going to go kind of cliche here, and I'm going to say that my wedding day, although I'm
Mm,
not generally very sentimental about things, well, it was a beautiful day of celebration. And also my mom, who crossed over 2 months after that,
mm,
was there, and she was living in Israel, and I was living in Florida. But my parents came here for the wedding and it was like a miracle they could dance. My mom was literally
mm,
dying of cancer. My dad has Parkinson and was not very mobile, but they were able to dance the rock and roll and look like pros. And it was just a beautiful celebration with everyone that I love.
mm.
So I'm gonna go with that.
Wonderful. I am going to follow up with just one other question. The wings that are behind you, those
Yes.
amethyst half pieces that are in the shape of a wing of wings. That is quite marvelous. Can you give us
Thank you.
a little bit about, tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say other than it is amazing. I love the energy. I love the way it looks. I decided to, after my dad transitioned last year, I decided to give myself from him a gift. And I'm not one who buys myself a lot of things or expensive things. And I bought myself this gift from the mines in Brazil, a beautiful butterfly amethyst geode. Um, I just think it's beautiful, all the way around, whether it's the energy or the way it looks or the way it feels, or even the idea that it's a gift from my parents from the other side. So that's the story of my amethyst wings.
That's beautiful. It truly is beautiful. Once again, thank you so much for being a part of what we're doing here. And I thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love Talal. Jeanette, I am still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I will see you on the other side. Mike, thanks for being in my life and letting me be in yours. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.